It's an honor for all Malaysians and peace-loving people of the world who believe in justice, in peace, and accept humbly. Thank you very much, Rektor Torkunov. I didn't realize you surprised me with this. But it is, of course, a rare honor. And it would be taken as a major challenge for us to live to the aspirations of this great university, and more so to embark upon a journey which is very critical for mankind. We have lost the sense of honor, dignity, human values, and respect. And it is a challenge mainly to the young to do our utmost to assimilate knowledge, imbibe the know-how, the new disciplines of digital transformation and artificial intelligence, and the need to transform our societies through energy transition. At the same time, imbibe ourselves with the strong values. The Russians talk about the Russian soul. And it is very consistent with our Madani framework. Yes, we have to affect change. We are living in unprecedented times. The pace of change is fast and unprecedented. The new technology demands us to be more creative and human beings to be more ingenious. But we should never lose our soul of dignity, of human values, and respect for one another, of different creed, different cultures and civilizations. Incidentally, I had a great meeting with President Vladimir Putin. We are here on his invitation with my colleagues, and exchanges from a very important international leader to a relatively smaller country in ASEAN. But we accorded the sense of respect, of equality in the level of comfort. And this is what needs to be promoted in the world. We don't believe in unilateral decisions and display of power and arrogance. We need to showcase that every community, every country, big or small, rich or poor, must be given the respect and recognition. I therefore take this opportunity in this great university, MGIMO, to thank the President and the people of Russia for that sense of recognition and respect, and the belief that we have to work together. We can only work together if we do respect the differences, cultural, religious. And of course, incidentally, there was this joke about the throne. And put in a more relaxed manner. I don't see him relaxed many ways, but yesterday he was relaxed. He was asking me, he said, Pierre Manoir, you see the three thrones, three seats in that throne. Of course, I see the emperor or the Tsar is in the center. And the Tsarina probably on the right. So he said, but on the left, second wife. Then he laughed. He said, you see, you think as a Muslim, only talk about wives. I said, no. I said, I maintain I still have one wife, and I don't encourage people to have too many wives. It's tough enough to control and discipline one wife. Don't tell my wife that, please. So he said, no, on the left is the mother, Queen Mother, whatever. And then on the way to the press conference, he whispered, he said, can I tell this story? I said, what story? About the wife. But this is President Putin, whom I reflect to be very stern and serious. So I said, of course, Mr. President. I wasn't sure how he's going to tell the story. So after the initial remarks on trade, investments, artificial intelligence, energy transition, collaboration, higher education, in language, etc., he said to me, I'll say it. So then he went on to say that, and of course it's viral. And then, it's interesting enough, I had to respond, because my wife would certainly follow that. I'd be in trouble. So I responded, I said, not all Muslims share that view. Of course, it's permitted, but then I still maintain I have only one wife. And then on the way out, we were talking, and then he said, why do we take a photograph in front of the throne? So we did, the two of us with the three thrones, or seats. And then he said, you know something? I rarely joke in public. I said, well, that shows the human side of Putin. And I'm sure we rejoice with that. And I feel, of course, extremely glad that we have been very engaging and trusting, and feel that, you know, we can be true, great friends. So I think it augurs well for the Russian Federation, Malaysia, and of course I will share this with my colleagues in ASEAN. But our discussions will relate to what Rektor Torkunov mentioned, to enhance our bilateral relations, but also to focus on the young, exchange of students, of professors, of researchers, and then to get students here and Russian students also in Malaysia. We have now close to 400 Russian students in Malaysia, but of course 700 Malaysian students here. And many of my colleagues from ASEAN countries have also sent and continue to do so. And thank you very much for having the Bahasa Malaysia or Malay language instructions here in this MGIMO. And as you know, at the University of Malaya, we also have Russian language instruction. I don't follow Russian, unfortunately. But that is the I think, need for us to focus when we talk about bilateral relations. It's just not about politics and diplomacy and trade and investments. These are pivotal. Yes, countries have to ensure that their fundamentals, economic fundamentals, be strong. But human values cannot be ignored. That's why, as I've said, in all my years, from the days I was a student and the many years I spent in prison, I took a lot of time and interest in reading all the great works of Russian thinkers and literary giants. Yesterday at the Metropole Hotel, I was in the Chekhov room. And then going there, I saw the Turgenev room and Tolstoy. And for the information of Rector, I must say that we have also encouraged our translation bureau to translate some of these great works. Where else can you find a country with such culture and tradition able to produce remarkable, phenomenal work of literature, of understanding human strength, depravity, tragedy, and humanity at large? I mean, reading the works of Dostoevsky, Chekhov, Tolstoy, Pasternak, the poems of Anna Akhmatova, etc., I mean, would enrich not only the soul of Russia, but the soul of humanity, which is now terribly lacking. And this is consistent what we talked about polylogue among civilizations. How do you serve the world without any attempt to understand one another, of thinking that you represent the best and therefore tend to be condescending towards the rest? So, polylogue among civilizations is not about erasing other cultures or distinctions. It's about recognizing the strength of one another. That's why I used to say, these post-normal times, often we ignore the importance of these values, intrinsic values of humanity, of justice, of respect. Even how we look at the issues in the world today. You find, for example, utter devastation of Gaza, with hardly any effort to redeem the problems. And you can see, for example, the debate when you talk about how do you deal with Ukraine and you deal with Gaza. You see, this contradiction is unacceptable. That is why in my remarks, I say, how is it that 2 killed in Ukraine is a disaster, and 40,000 killed in Gaza is a mistake? So this contradiction must end. I told President Putin that we look forward to this success of these negotiations taking place in Istanbul today. And we support all efforts, initiative to resolve this amicably and peacefully. No country should be used to support design of others. We have to have the patience to deal with it. With President Putin, I even embarked on a very sensitive subject. The shooting of MH17, the Malaysian plane that caused 43 deaths of Malaysians. I mean, people would say, unless you are a true friend, you can't discuss this. And I raised this question as a true friend. I said, how do I respond to this ICAO UN report? And mind you, President Putin shows so much, a great concern of this tragedy. And told me in very clear terms, we should get the bottom of it. Any international effort to resolve this must be done professionally, scientifically. And of course, I would accept that. That is a precondition. But to my mind, for a small emerging country in economy like Malaysia, why do I get this courage to ask President Putin? Because I trust him as a friend. And his response was, to me, extremely helpful. He says, there's no question, it's a major tragedy. And there's no question that we will get to the bottom of it. We'll give all the cooperation possible to find out the truth behind this tragedy. Now, but of course you must have credible institutions, independent, professional institution. And it is very complex because countries sometimes expect us to be hard and divisive. So I'm just sharing with you one episode, which is clearly a way where we can work among nations to secure ultimately through peace. And I am very fortunate that I come from a region, Malaysia, and ASEAN, the most peaceful sub-region in the world. And ASEAN, the most vibrant economically, fastest growing economy in the world. Why? There's peace in the region. We establish extremely close relationship with the leaders. Any issue, say Myanmar, we say, well, we have to find consensus. When I decided to go to Bangkok to meet the military junta and the opposition prime minister, the two prime ministers in the same country, I consulted all leaders of ASEAN. Can I do that? Because there was a terrible earthquake, that they need to have a ceasefire, that we need to have humanitarian efforts. And without exception, all of them, Singapore, Philippines, Brunei, Indonesia, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, all said, please proceed. And after that, I immediately called them to tell them about the level of success and engagement that we have. So I'm not saying that this is due to one country or Malaysia, no, but because of this trust and comradeship and engagement between the leaders of ASEAN. And I'm very fortunate to be given that trust to coordinate the efforts. So, you remember in Fathers and Sons by Turgenev. We sit in the mud, my friend, and reach the stars. Quote. This captures the human condition, grounded in struggle. We sit in the mud, yet reaching with ideals something higher. This is the brutal reality of the world. But also, more importantly, an enduring promise. And because we're living in so much tensions and distrust, despite the so-called initial post-war, post-Cold War, initial security understandings, we still have a problem. Now let us take the great Dostoevsky in Crime and Punishment. Yeah, I'm testing the Russians. All is in a man's hands, and he lets it all slip from cowardice. That's an axiom. It would be interesting to know what it is men are most afraid of. Taking a new step, uttering a new word. A new word is what they fear most. So do not fear innovation, creativity, and the preparedness to state what is right, what is just, what is honorable. Now, I state this because we are in a geopolitical flux that casts a shadow not only on security issues, but on trade and economic cooperation. You know, there is rise. Can you imagine in 2025, after all the GATT and WTO and multilateral arrangements, now we have the rise of protectionism, arbitrary imposition on tariffs, unilateral sanctions, and economic decoupling that threatens the entire system that the world has somewhat agreed upon. So, for a trading nation like Malaysia and my colleagues in ASEAN, this is nothing short from existential threat. We are a trading nation. We have become one of the hub for semiconductor production chips in the region. And of course, there's a production, both at the initially the back end now, advanced design, advanced packaging, and suddenly we are threatened with this. So that's why we must continue to promote this sort of understanding, MGIMO, for what? For world order, for understanding, for peace, for collaboration, for open trade. That's essentially why you have an international institution like this. Why Rektor Torkunov, I think this morning alone, told me about at least 6 times about the need to enhance cooperation and collaboration. After this speech, he will say for the 7th time. But he is saying something which is appropriate and pertinent, that the days of protectionism must be over. So it must be a rule-based world order. So I represent my colleagues in ASEAN fostering this issue. That's why we support CPTPP, RCEP, and now with Russian support. Mind you, the country that proposed Malaysia's entry as a partner in BRICS was Russian Federation. It was President Putin that proposed in last year's meeting, and of course supported by China, India, Ethiopia. We are very fortunate. So that's where BRICS stand for, and I think we in Malaysia look forward to opening up trade and market from traditional partners. Now, notwithstanding what I've said, please remember that the United States is the largest investor into Malaysia and our largest trading partner. But it doesn't stop us from stating what we believe is right and honorable. Now, Alexander Solzhenitsyn reminds us the line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. This reflects a universal truth. The struggle between our better and worst angels is not between nations, but within each of us. It is the humility that allows us to pursue his interests. As I must reiterate that personal sense and feeling of satisfaction when meeting hours yesterday with President Putin, this leader of this large, great country, would engage with a relatively much smaller country and economy with the same human recognition, equality, and collaboration. This, to my mind, is a remarkable feat, and I wish these 2 countries, together with ASEAN, well. But we must not be tempted by despair. History, many of you students learn history, economic history, political history. They are not moved by perfection. It is shaped by perseverance and resilience. Leadership is the work of patient conviction, to struggle forward when the path is uncertain, to act with courage when clarity is elusive, and to hold fast to hope when it feels most fragile. That is the task before us. Thank you.